Welcome, everybody, to the Happier Mom Show. Today is the first episode, and I couldn't be more excited. And so it's been a work in the making. For those of you all that don't know me, my name is Brandy Michelle, and I'm the founder of FamilyFelicity.com. And I basically help moms to live with more joy, more calm, and more connection in their families. And so that's just a passion of mine. And I've been doing this for a few years now. And finally, I've decided to take the plunge and go live and show up in a face-to-face format, because I really want to create a sense of community here. And I'm very excited to share what we're going to be talking about today, which is all things mom guilt. Got my arrow the other way. So not mom guilt, mom burnout. Okay. So 2020, right? 2020 is the year of, we could say the year of mom burnout. Okay. Because we are making records. We are hitting the news waves, moms being inundated with everything from working at home with small children. I just read another article yesterday talking about the no longer there, what do they call it? The death of the working mom. Basically, you either have to choose to be a good employee or a good mom. And I'm not really going to go into talking about that or having any opinions on that, but just the point is that this year has been hard. It's been hard for all of us, but it's really been hard for moms, because most of us were already used to doing all the things all the time. You don't get a break. You don't get a sick day. You don't get time out. Well, you try to give yourself time out, but the point is that there is no time off for motherhood, and it's hard. We can put a positive light on motherhood. Motherhood is wonderful. I love being a mom, but it's hard. It's emotionally hard. It's physically hard. And that's the reality of it. However, the thing is that in this year, we're doing stuff. Most of us are doing things and facing issues that we didn't face last year and the years prior to. So you're either working from home with small children, you have a new baby in the world in the middle of a pandemic, you are doing virtual schooling or homeschooling. I'm all of those things. And so it's definitely a struggle. And so where I do believe that every mother will face a period and a season of mom burnout, in every season of motherhood. I think I just believe it's a part of being a mom, because the complicated nature of being a mother and all of the emotional and physical stuff that comes along with it. But I do believe that there are things that we can do to spot it, to reduce the impact in our lives, because I do not believe that mom burnout is God's best for us as moms. And there's things that we can do to guard our heart, guard our families, and guard our entire way of life from burnout. So it isn't a sentence that, yeah, okay, mom burnout affects all moms, and so I just got to deal with it. No, there are definitely some things to do. And so we're really going to have an honest conversation about mom burnout today. Now, I'm trying to keep an eye on the comment. So if you leave a comment, I will be looking out for that as well, because we are here live, y'all. So what we're going to talk about is the fact that mom burnout, as I said, is very real. It's very real. It's probably more real than it ever has been before. And so if you're like me and most other moms, you might be doing life just as you were before, but you also are doing a lot more stuff, and you're trying to figure out, how do I balance this? Maybe you're working two jobs. Maybe you're doing virtual schooling in the morning. I read a comment on Facebook where one mom is saying, I'm working two jobs, and in the middle of these two jobs, I take a brief break to support my children in their virtual online learning. And then I go home and I sleep for about 4 hours, and then I come back around and do it again. And so she relies on her family to watch her children, but she's trying to do everything she can to show up and still be present for her kids. It's a huge burden, not a burden in a negative sense to say motherhood is a burden, but the things that we're having to do now and moms are having to do right now can quickly lead to a place of this unhealthy. And so we want to make sure that we guard ourselves against that, and figure out everything that we can do to help us to have that more joy, more calm. Okay. We're going to talk about that in a minute, and more connection with our family. So the first thing I want you to do is to stop believing the lie that really good moms love their kids so much that they never deal with mom burnout. That's a lie, okay? Because love really doesn't have anything to do with it. You can love your kids as much as there is possibly the amount of love that you can have. And I believe that you as a mom love your kids as much as you can possibly love your children. So like if there was a quantitative, is that a word? A measurement to measure how much love, you could love them all the way to the maximum amount of love and still experience burnout, simply because there are so many things that need to be managed physically, emotionally, time-wise, that can become very overwhelming for us. And so we just continue going on and on and on and don't realize that mom burnout has set in. So I had an experience recently. So basically in my quote here, it says that we just keep going at this breakneck speed, ignoring the noise under the hood or the check engine light that comes on until we find ourselves stranded and having to call AAA from the roadside. So it's a metaphor for how we tend to manage our emotions and our physical well-being as moms. And so I had an actual a true experience of this a couple weeks ago, and I was running a few errands, and I noticed the first time I started my car, the startup engine was kind of laggy, you know what I mean? It kind of, but I thought it was so subtle. I thought maybe I was imagining things. And then the second time I went to another errand, I had to go pick up my daughter from dance later that day. And so I did it again. And lo and behold, the last stop I had to make before I had to go across town to pick her up, my car wouldn't start. And so, and here's the kicker. I had this thought in my heart: stop and go to the Lincoln place, which was right by my house, where I could quickly go, have them evaluate my battery to see if it was working or not, or whatever their issue was. And I could have had the issue resolved and then went on about my business. But I ignored the light. I ignored the sound that I knew. My intuition was telling me, and sometimes it's the check engine light, sometimes it's something else. It was telling me something wasn't right. But I just said, you know what? I just got to get to the next place and get to the next place. And then I was stranded. And so oftentimes with burnout, that's how we do. We just go and we go and we go and we go. And what happens is we end up stranded, we end up breaking down, we end up completely exhausted, totally overwhelmed. Then we go through, and I'm going to talk about the cycle of mom burnout in a second. And so it'll make it really simple for you to see a visual aspect of kind of how we go through this cycle. So, but just, I said this check engine light analogy to just say your body, your mind, your heart, and Holy Spirit is always talking to us and telling us what we need and what we need to avoid. And so we have to become better at listening, and not just listening and ignoring, because I heard the message, but actually obeying the message. So let's talk about, what does mom burnout look like in action? So, and I want to preface this by saying that when I say look like in action, this is going to look different for every single mother. This is going to look different for every family, because you are living a different circumstance and I'm living, so on and so forth. So these are generalities. If you feel like, okay, I'm fitting one of these, doesn't necessarily mean you're in burnout. But if you start seeing a pattern as we go through here and you're like, yes, 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 okay, then you might be experiencing burnout. And so oftentimes we don't even realize it. We're like, why do I feel so bad? Why do I feel so tired? Why do I feel so overwhelmed? And it's because things have gotten out of balance, but there are things that you can do. And so we're going to talk about that. And then if you have questions, please put them in the comments, in the comment section, and I'm going to make sure that I answer your questions here on this live. So feel free to do that. So the first sign is that we have more than, I will have more than the occasional yelling blow up at my kids. Okay. And this is actually one of my, for sure, signs that I'm dealing with mom burnout. Okay. And let me also say that mom burnout doesn't have to be something that happens for weeks or months at a time. It can be days at a time. It could be a week at a time. And then you can get yourself back in order. And so that's what this video is all about, is helping you to figure out quick, simple things that you can do to say, okay, I think I'm headed to that place. Let me slow down. Let me figure this out, and let me get back on. And so I tend to go through these cycles myself as I go through my days and my weeks. I have weeks when I'm really busy and I'm overwhelmed and I start hitting that wall. And this number one right here is the one that flags for me the biggest. Okay. So, and I'm not talking about yelling at your kid when they do something disrespectful or rude and you're like, I can't believe they would do that. And then you get angry because that's understandable. Should we yell? No. But I mean, getting mad and angry when our kids do something we don't like is different. I'm talking about when your 3-year-old or 4-year-old is walking through the kitchen and you're trying to, you're getting ready for an appointment or you're getting up or whatever, and you're kind of going through your day and they trip over something and they spill their milk all over the floor. And then you're like, what? Why would you do that? Oh my God, I just cleaned the floor, or I just did this. And your child is standing there in tears. Okay. So I'm not saying this with judgment. I'm saying this because I have done it so many times, particularly in the past. So I've learned things now to where I don't have those snap off moments nearly as much. I'm not saying that I don't ever have them. I'm saying that I'm saying that from experience. So I know what it means to be, your kids are just doing regular kid stuff. And so, and let's all be in agreement here that kids, I don't care if they're little kids, toddlers, elementary kids, or teenagers, they all have their moments of being annoying because they just do weird stuff and they kind of get on your nerves a little bit because they're just doing kid stuff. Okay. But when you are burnt out, it's that stuff that you normally think, man, my kids are weird, or they're just doing something, unusual or typically something that is, annoying or would normally just get on your nerves. And it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot take it. And you kind of feel, I'll even say like triggered. Okay. Sometimes I will feel like my son will be doing something and he'll just be doing, he thinks he's Spider-Man. Okay. He's 5 and he's so cute, but he'll run around and go shooting webs. Okay. Can anybody identify with that? And he'll be shooting off webs and he's doing this thing. And if I'm super stressed out, I'm in this burnout mode, I can be triggered by that. Like, oh my God, will you please stop? And you want to scream or I say, no, honey, can you bring it down? And then I kind of divert his attention, or I might leave or something like that. So I'm talking about more than the occasional, like you are feeling super on edge. That would be definitely your first step to, yes. So me too, honestly. Yes. So Mama Bear, I love your screen name. You're with me. So I mean, we're all in this together for sure. The second one is your house is in a constant state of disarray. So hashtag bless this mess. Okay. So, and I don't mean, okay. Oh, and please, no condemnation here. I am not the super organized minimalist, help you clean your house, do cleaning videos, or like any of that. Like I'm the mom that you cannot stop by my house without giving me warning, because my house is usually going to be messy. Things are going to be needing to get picked up and tidied up. So no, I'm not saying that if your house doesn't look like a model home that you must be in burnout. What I am saying though, is that when your dishes are like piling up to the point where your kitchen don't smell right. Okay. And I'm saying again, from experience, okay, that, your bathroom has not been picked up. Laundry is overflowing, and not simply because you just literally haven't had time to schedule it, but you just haven't had the desire. You're like, I can't get it. The kids are like, I don't have anything to wear. I don't have any underwear, and then now you feel more and more frustrated. So having your house, when your house is just upside down all the time, that's a huge sign that there's nothing happening. There's no sense of momentum that's happening that helps you to move forward, or if you feel normal. Okay. So when you don't feel normal, when you feel like your house is taking over, that's a huge sign. So please, if you're looking around going, I hope she's not looking at my house, I won't turn the camera so you can look at mine. But I definitely know that when things are just not in order, that's a huge, huge sign. So next is number 3, feeling lonely. But, huge but, you're resisting the urge to connect with your family or friends. Okay. So in other words, you start to self-isolate. So, and this happens so much because we have a sense of shame. We have a sense that you may be going through a depression in addition to feeling burnt out. You just feel like, I don't even have a desire, but in your heart, you want to connect with other people. it's hard to explain. And I'm an introvert. And so I'm not a huge, like, I got to be around people connecting and hanging out. I am not. But I have this need when I'm feeling something. I want to connect with someone that I can talk to. I want to be able to have a conversation. I want to be able to vent. I want to be able to say, hey, I'm struggling here. But I've been in those seasons where I've wanted to do that, but I felt like you want to pick up the phone, you want to send that text message to say, hey girl, can you meet me for some coffee, or pick up that phone and have that conversation. But then you hang up, or you put the phone down and you don't do it. And because you feel a sense of, just a lack of drive to actually connect, even though you feel lonely, you feel a sense of isolation. So, and I'm going to talk specifically about this in a minute when we go over the cycle. It kind of specifically why we do this whole self-isolation. The fourth thing is that, I don't know why I keep doing this every time I do a number, but the fourth thing is that your health is not a priority in your daily actions. So this is a big one. And I'm not saying your health isn't a priority. When my health isn't a priority in my daily actions, which means that I'm getting all the things done that have to be done, meaning I'm putting all the fires out. I'm going to all the appointments that I have to go to. I'm tending to all the things my kids need me to, like I've fed them. I have put them to bed. I have got them up. I've taken them to school, or I've made sure they signed on to their virtual lessons. I have done the work that I have to do. I've shown up to work virtually or in person, all those things that I have to do, but nothing else. So I have not managed to sleep well. I'm not managing to eat well. I'm not managing to take any kind of rest for myself. I'm not exercising in any shape or form other than getting up from one thing to the next and sitting back down again. So when I know that I'm eating terrible, I'm craving things that I shouldn't be eating, when I do all that, and I know, okay, I am no longer in thriving mode, I'm in surviving mode. So I'm just trying to make sure that I eat. I'm trying to make sure that I get to bed at some point and wake up and do it the next. So there's no sense of, okay, I'm healthy, I'm doing the right things that make my body feel good. I'm just basically surviving day in and day out. And that's not a healthy thing. So we're going to talk about the cycle of mom burnout. Overwhelm, step number one, is really where everything starts. And so I'm not trying to have an oversimplification. I am not a therapist or a medical doctor, so I'm not trying to give medical advice here. I'm going over my personal experiences and the experiences of other moms in my community that have had this conversation about what causes mom burnout. Like, why do we get there in the first place? And I believe that the beginning of burnout, for whether it's moms or work burnout or anyone else, it could be exercise burnout, any type of burnout, and you just hit that wall and you're like, I just can't do it anymore. It starts with overwhelm, and really ignored overwhelm, because we all get overwhelmed. Ignored overwhelm is when I'm overwhelmed and I'm not doing anything about it. And I get up every day and I stay overwhelmed and I stay overwhelmed and I'm still not doing anything about it. And so all these things are playing in my head. So the next stage is that I attempt to try to lighten the load. So imagine a ship in the ocean, and all of a sudden the ship is about to sink. There's a storm, something's going on. And you always hear the stories about needing to lighten the load. And so they're going around looking for anything that's heavy, anything that they can toss over the side so that they can hopefully not sink. This is definitely an emergency situation. So I would definitely classify mom burnout as an emergency situation. There are so many things that are tied to our mental, physical, and emotional well-being that when you're in a state of survival mode, that's not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family. It's not good for anything that you are connected to. And so it's an emergency. Your ship is going down. And so you're looking around trying to figure out, what can I unload from this situation? And so oftentimes the unloading that we do, because if you'll notice that I can't unload taking my kids to school, I can't unload showing up to work, I can't unload making breakfast, packing lunches, doing all the necessary things that we have to do. I can't unload that stuff. So what do I unload? I have to make something lighter, right? So I unload self-care. I unload making time for myself. I unload connecting with friends. I unload reading books that actually make me feel better. I unload spending time with God in prayer and reading my word. I unload all the things that are good for me, all the things that are going to help me get through. We unload those things. And so now we're overwhelmed. We're going through a cycle of ignored overwhelm. We're lightening the load of all the things that we need. Then because we have a sense of shame, if it continues, then we start to self-isolate. We don't ask for help. Part of isolating is we don't reach out to our support system and ask for help. I am so guilty, and my husband will tell you this. I'm one of the people still to this day, even though I know I shouldn't be this way, I don't like asking for help. I don't like asking for help from anyone. It's just kind of a thing. And I don't think that asking for help is a sign of weakness in any way. But I'm still working through that. Okay. I'm a work in progress. And so part of me, I have to make sure that if I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm feeling weighted down, I have to make sure that I am asking for help from my support system. And so one of, and I'm going to address this at the end, the Q&A, one of my readers had asked, how do I ask for help with my husband? How do I communicate this need for help and communicate my need of, or I should say, communicate my feeling of being overwhelmed to my spouse? And so that's part of that, is reaching out, coming out of the shell and having communications. And I'm going to get to that at the end of the Q&A. But so once we start isolating, we stop asking for help, then that moves in because we're like, I'm doing everything myself. Nobody's helping me. The kids aren't helping me. My husband's not helping me. Don't they see everything that I'm doing? Gosh, motherhood is such a thankless job. I mean, motherhood really is a thankless job, but we can take that with joy and realize that that's okay because I get my validation from the Lord who has given me these children, and I can feel a sense of joy and satisfaction in what I'm doing as a mother, and I don't have to get the thanks from everyone around me. But that feeling of resentment that I'm doing all of these things on my own, no one's helping me, nobody's doing anything to work with me, that really leads to a feeling of resentment. Okay, I resent the fact that I'm having to do this. I'm starting to look at my friends that don't have children and thinking, I wonder what life would be like if I didn't have. Oh, okay. Oh, wait a minute. You don't think those thoughts? Okay. I think all mothers do. And again, we're having an honest conversation, right? It is okay to feel thoughts of resentment, first of all, because motherhood is a lot. So that doesn't make you a bad mom for thinking that. But honestly, we don't want to be in a situation where we feel resentful for our family, our spouse, or anyone else that we love in our family. We don't. And then that resentment automatically leads to irritability. Okay. So we're snapping, we're yelling. We talked about that earlier. We're all, I can't believe, just being uptight all the time. And then of course we know what happens after we yell at, what happens after we feel that feeling of resentment. We're like, oh my gosh, I'm such a terrible mom. Good moms don't ever think those kind of thoughts. Good moms don't constantly yell and berate their kids every time they do something wrong. I know I'm doing something wrong. I'm terrible. And so we feel guilty. And then it goes back into a cycle of overwhelm, rinse and repeat. This is a cycle that just continues to repeat itself. But I'm here to tell you that's what we're talking about today. We don't have to stay in this continuous washing machine cycle of overwhelm and getting rid of the things that are good for us and isolating resentment and angry and then feeling guilty and then feeling overwhelmed. There's a way that we can break through. So we're talking about what it looks like, what is the actual cycle and the impact that it has on our family, and now what can we actually do about it? So the first thing that I want you to do, and I want you to do this every day, not just when you're in mom burnout or feeling overwhelmed mode. I want you to do this every day, but even more so when you feel like you're stuck in this cycle. I want you to be kind to yourself. Okay. Ephesians 4:32 says to be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another. That sounds like grace to me, as God in Christ has forgiven you. So this scripture is talking about you giving grace to others, okay? But you can't tell me that this does not also apply to you giving that same kindness, that same tenderheartedness, that same grace back to yourself, okay? So you need to start talking more kindly to yourself. You are not here to constantly talk about, oh, you were such a terrible mom. You are not like so-and-so that you saw on Instagram. Remember when she had that picture that she took with her kids? Seems like she would never yell at her kids. You don't know what she does behind closed doors. You don't know how she's feeling behind closed doors. You need to start talking to yourself the way that you would talk to your best girlfriend. If you had a conversation with your friend who came to you and said, sis, I'm struggling. I'm overwhelmed. I'm dealing with this and I don't know, I'm resentful, I'm always snapping. What do I do? I want you to have a conversation to yourself the way you would have a conversation to her. I want you to step out of yourself for a moment and have a conversation with yourself. I do this all the time. I'm not just saying this as mumbo jumbo. When I get into something, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I say, okay, what would you say if you were talking to someone else? Because there's something about how we talk to others with such kindness and such compassion. And also we have so much wisdom when we talk to someone else. It seems like we're like, oh, that's so clear. Like not in a judgmental, like all you need to do is da 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 da. But there's so much wisdom. And why don't, I can clearly see that you've been overdoing it in this area, or you've been ignoring something over in this area. Like I can see it. You might not be able to see it. And then you can say to your friend, girl, I've been watching you. Can you just take this advice? Step back, ignore this. Don't worry about that. Let me help you. Ask this person. There's so much wisdom. So I want you to switch roles, and I want you to talk to yourself with compassion, with forgiveness for the mistakes that you've made. Your kids, I'm telling you, the things that I have said and yelled in the past to my kids, they don't even know. They're like, they're old enough to remember, but it's as if God just washed away those memories of me in those angry, uptight days years ago when I was a new mom. And so when I didn't understand how to manage my own emotions. So there is grace. Your kids are forgiving you. You need to forgive yourself. So the first thing I want you to do is be kind to yourself and talk to yourself like you're talking to a friend. You'd be surprised how much wisdom you have for the situation that you're in, and how much you're like, oh, wow, okay. You will feel so much better and refreshed and not feel so critical, because you cannot go into getting out of this cycle of mom burnout without having compassion for yourself. You can't do it, because if you're constantly berating yourself for the things that you aren't, or you are, or you're saying that are negative, you're never going to fully be able to be free. So take the words of God. Okay. So I didn't put a personal quote there. Take God's word on it. He said, you need to go out there and be tenderhearted, be kind to one another, and be forgiving, and give some grace to others. He is saying the same thing for you with yourself. Okay. Now, the second thing is to rest and listen. Okay. And I want to make sure I make myself super, super clear here. When you're in burnout mode, oftentimes depression will hit in, and you'll feel like all I'm doing is laying around. All I'm doing is watching Netflix. I don't have the energy to get up and do anything else. I've been there. So when I say, when you're in that state, you're physically not doing anything. So it seems like you're resting, but what's really happening is you are working, you are cleaning your house, you are disciplining your kids, you are taking them here, you're going there, and you're doing it all in your mind. So you're not taking advantage of any season of rest whatsoever. You're laying on the couch, but this is still just going and going and going. And this right here, my friend, is almost more exhausting than the physical aspect of it. So you can be stressed about something up here and be doing absolutely nothing but laying in the bed and feel exhausted. So, and we all know that to be true. So when I say rest, I mean, take an intentional, like, okay, I'm not cleaning in my mind. I'm not fixing anything in my mind. I am not doing anything physically. I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to stop doing, and then I'm going to start listening. So we need to first listen, pray, ask God, listen to what he is saying. Lord, I am feeling overwhelmed. Maybe we have not gone to him to hear what he has to say. Maybe we're just trying to tough it out. And I'm saying, surrender the pride, surrender that need to feel shame, and just be there with him and listen. And we also need to listen to our hearts, listen to our bodies, and listen to our spirit. So your body is telling you, I'm achy, I'm tired, my back is constantly going out, I'm having headaches, I'm feeling completely overwhelmingly, I'm feeling strong fatigue, okay, exhaustion, I can't sleep, I'm having insomnia. So there's a lot of things that your body is going to be telling you, and you need to listen to what it's saying to you and just take that moment of intentional rest. And so when we stop and we just say, okay, I'm taking a break. And when you take that break, you do whatever you believe is right for you to do. Even if it's take the day off and watch a series on Netflix. I know some people would have said that doesn't sound right. I have done that. And so, but I'm not saying do it out of depression and exhaustion and saying, oh, I'm just trying to avoid doing it. But sometimes you just need to take a break and say, I call it a momcation, and I close my door and say, okay, I don't want anybody knocking on my door for a while. And then I just do what I want to do. Take a break, rest your mind, not make any decisions, just rest. Okay. But listen, you'll be surprised when you take that moment. I know I'm saying watch Netflix and listen, but you'll be surprised that when you just take the expectations and just move them away and take an intentional break, how much wisdom you'll actually receive when you just get away. And so, and I'm not just saying, go watch Netflix. I'm really saying the best thing for you to do is just turn off the TV, take a break, go for long walks, read books, get in prayer, whatever it is that you believe you need to do. That's going to look different. I don't know what your time schedule is. I don't know what your obligations are. You could be working 2 jobs, you might have just a fraction of time, but whatever it is you're working with, use that. Give it to yourself. Be selfish. Self-care is taking care of self. And so you have to make time for you in order to be able to give time to others so that you don't end up wearing yourself out. And once you've gone through that period of listening, hearing, okay, what do I need to do? Talking to yourself, having those kind conversations with yourself, then the last thing to do is take action. Now, okay, that might seem like, okay, I'm not trying, when I say I'm not going to be the self-help folks that say, now take massive action. No, really just the opposite. Take small action. Make that phone call to ask for help, or take that very intentional break. Okay, that I'm going to take that break. Okay, that is something that I'm doing right now. Do the one thing that you know you need to be doing. It could be going in and just cleaning your kitchen, putting on some worship music, or just putting on something and just going and cleaning that kitchen with nothing else going on. And then you'll go, oh my gosh, it feels so much better. Whatever it is, go for a walk, go anywhere. You know what you need to do. And so I can't tell you what you need to do, but do that one thing, because positive actions will bring about more positive actions. When you do things for yourself that you know you need to be doing in a positive way, your body automatically goes, I want some more of that. It starts to produce those feel-good hormones of dopamine in your brain. And you're like, I want more of that. And so you're going to do more of that. Instead of doing that cycle of negativity, you're going to start doing a cycle of positivity, and it's going to take action. Now, it takes time. This might seem simple to say, okay, the first thing we're going to do is be kind to myself. And then the second is to rest and listen. Just rest and listen. Listen, journal it out and hear what it is. You may be realizing, you know what? I need to step away from that job, or I need to step away from that situation that I'm in right now that is completely overwhelming me, or I need to just start asking for help from my kids, get them to get off their butts and do some chores if they're old enough to do so. I mean, there's a lot of different things. You know what you need to do. And so when you're resting and you're listening, write it down. And then finally, take action. Take small, slow, deliberate action. Because the goal here is not to overwhelm yourself. The goal here is not to feel like, oh, now I got a whole action list of stuff I got to do. No, it's just taking action and then allowing that next positive action to begin. So I hope that was helpful. Let me look and see what everyone is saying. Yes. Okay. You're in that season right now. Oh, thank you. All right. So now we're going to get into some Q&A time. So I got to work on doing my thing in the right direction. So, all right. Now I have a couple questions that have come through. And so I'm just going to take, because I don't want these lives to be too long. And so I'm going to put those questions up. Let me take this other thing down. And then, okay, so the first question that came through, and I mentioned this earlier, is how do I tell my husband when I'm feeling burnt out and I need help? So nobody can tell you specifically, unless they know your situation, how to approach your husband. So But I will say this, you have to have that conversation. You have to have the conversation. And so this is when you're dealing in a marital situation. And I myself I'm going on 20 years being married. And so we've had ups and downs, just like every other marriage, and have gone through seasons of communication being almost non-existent. And when in those seasons where communication is non-existent, it is the time when intimacy is non-existent, and it becomes that feeling of what we call rocky in your marriage. Because what we do sometimes is say, you know what, I want to avoid the conversation. I don't want to talk about that. So I'm not going to go to him because he's just going to snap at me, or he's going to, try to fix the situation. We love our husbands who want to fix all the things for us because their men are just kind of natural, like logical thinkers, and they want to come with solutions. But sometimes, maybe we don't want the solution. So we tend to hold back and not have the conversation. Or maybe we think he's going to get upset, or depending on the dynamic. I don't know what anyone's particular dynamic is in their marriage, but I will say this: have the conversation. And it can be as simple as saying, honey, can we have a quick talk? And then, going away from the kids and saying, hey, I really just need to talk to you real quick, and just letting them know, like, I'm really feeling overwhelmed right now. But I want to say something specifically as a marriage tip, because most of the time I'm talking about kids, but marriage is super, super important. When you're talking to your spouse, please, 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 please take this one piece of advice. Be very specific. Do not come to your husband and say, I'm feeling burnt out. And then he's going to look and go, okay, I'm sorry. Okay. You need to say, after you've gone through steps 1, 2, and 3, and you have more clarity, then you can come and say, honey, I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I've gone through a lot of soul searching and just really trying to figure out what's the cause of it. And I really feel like right now it would be so helpful if you could, after you get off of work, go pick up the kids from school. And when you pick up the kids from school, that gives me a buffer time of about an hour where I'm able to rest and get myself together before I have to XYZ. Okay. So that's an example of having the conversation, but actually saying, can you do this one specific thing? Or do you think we could trade off on nights doing bedtime routine? Because I would really, really love to be able to have a few nights out the week where I could just go in the room and just go to bed early, or do whatever it is that I want to do. And so when instead of saying generalities of, honey, I just want to tell you I'm so overwhelmed. Honey, I'm so stressed out. Can you just help me out? When you say it like that, you're not really giving him anything to go on. So my biggest piece of advice is to, one, have a conversation. Do not keep it to yourself, but actually talk it out with them. But specifically ask for what you need. And so, because oftentimes they'll be like, well, so what do you want from me? And then he's actually asking for what you should be giving to him. But then now you feel offended because you're like, well, what do you mean? What do I need? And then now there becomes a contentious interaction, when if we just say, hey, what we need, then he now has a better way of processing it and then answering it. So I hope that helps anyone who may be asking, because that's a super, super important question. And it also goes for your kids too, because you say, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. How do I communicate this with my kids? You may want to have all the kids sit down in the living room and have a discussion and say, okay, we really need to have a family meeting and talk about this. Mama is tired. Okay. What I would really love for all of you to do, this is what I need for you to do, is do a nighttime cleanup routine, so that I'm not going around the house cleaning up the house all night long, and then I'm tired until 2 o'clock in the morning because I cannot unwind, or whatever the issue is. So have the conversation, because if you don't have the conversation, that's another contributing factor of resentment and irritability. So we do not want to open up the door to that if at all possible. And the last question, and I'm going to make sure I don't have any more questions because it's Q&A time for anybody that has just popped in. How do I stop feeling so guilty all the time? Huge question. Big question. Mom guilt is a big thing. And I want to start off by simply saying that mom guilt is a part of being a mom, a really part of being a good mom. Okay. Yes, that we should not be walking around with condemnation. Okay. However, the fact that you are feeling guilty signifies that you innately care and love your children. So you've done something, okay, that maybe you shouldn't have, or maybe you're being pulled in too many directions, or maybe you weren't able to show up for your kids because you were doing so many things. Whatever it is of the source of the guilt, you really want to look at what you're feeling guilty for. But most of the time we feel guilty for things that are outside of our control, things that we don't have. I have to work until such and such time, so I can't go to, certain events with my kids, or this is going on and I can't control it. And so if you're feeling guilty for something that you simply cannot control, then that is when you have to say, it is a part of me. The guilt is part of me being a mom and me loving my kids. And I have to just give that to God and say, I feel bad. If there's anything that I can do to change the situation, then do that. But if you can't, then you got to let God heal your heart. And so there are things that we can do to break the cycle of guilt, but most of the time we're feeling guilty as moms for stuff that we can't control. And if you're feeling guilty for something that you've done that maybe you shouldn't have, maybe you yelled, maybe you're feeling extra cranky or whatever the case is, then ask for forgiveness and say sorry. Our children need to see an example of us apologizing and saying, mommy made a mistake. Mommy shouldn't have yelled. I got angry or whatever. And there's no shame in that. As a matter of fact, that's an excellent thing to be able to teach our children how to manage our emotions and how to gracefully apologize when we have made a mistake. And so, so then there's no guilt there, okay? Because we all make mistakes. We need to offer ourselves grace over guilt. Grace, grace, grace. It's unmerited favor from God. As they say, favor, grace is not fair. It's just a part of the gift of God. He gives us a grace that we really don't deserve. And so receive it and say, I'm not perfect. I'm not always going to hit it right, but I'm going to choose to be intentional about walking in grace over guilt. So hopefully that helps. And let me just make sure we don't have any other questions that have come through. I don't see any questions. So, all right. 5 kids. Bless you, bless you, bless you. I know you're an awesome mom and grateful for that. But yes, I know how easy the trap of mom burnout can be. So I can't wait until next week. And I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast now. And thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you next Tuesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. See you next week. Bye.